The tension in the build-up to today's transatlantic summit evaporated in the White House this evening when the Prime Minister threw everything at getting agreements on Ukraine and on tariffs. Sir Keir Starmer ramped up the rhetoric, reminding President Trump of the shared victory of VE Day and proffered a golden ticket, an invitation from King Charles for a second historic state visit for the President and First Lady. It looks to have worked. Indeed, the President did talk about striking two deals, one on trade, the other on ending the war. On Ukraine, Sir Keir Starmer said they'd had a very productive discussion on an American security guarantee to make a peace deal stick. It seems the President was also charmed by what he called Sir Keir's beautiful accent. Well, beautiful accent or not, the Prime Minister is heading home now, with Ukraine's President Zelensky heading in the opposite direction for his meeting tomorrow.
So much at stake in their first White House rendezvous.
President Trump, can you get a peace deal done in Ukraine?
Yes.
How confident are you, sir?
Yeah,
This is potentially the most important meeting between a British Prime Minister and an American President since the Second World War, with consequences for our security and our prosperity. Straight to the Oval Office and what looked almost like a love-in.
we can say that we're going to be getting along on every one of them. We've had a tremendous relationship, and frankly, the Prime Minister and I have met twice before, and we get along very famously, as you would say. Well, I think we have just a great relationship. We actually had a good relationship before. We've met a couple of times, and I'm very impressed with him. I'm very impressed with his wife, I must say. She's a beautiful, great woman. And I said you're very lucky. He's very lucky.
And thanks to a letter from our monarch to theirs, Starmer definitely got off on the right foot.
So this is a letter from His Majesty the King. It's an invitation for a second state visit. This is really special. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented. And I think that just symbolises the strength of the relationship. Yes. What I haven't got yet is your answer. I do need to.
The answer is yes. On behalf of our wonderful First Lady, Melania, and myself, the answer is yes.
On whether there'll be steep tariffs on UK exports, Trump made clear his target is primarily the EU, not us.
We don't like the way they're treating our people now. We don't like the way they're treating our companies.
It could have all gone wrong over plans to transfer the British island of Chagos, home of an important US airbase, to Mauritius. It didn't.
Very soon, and I have a feeling it's going to work out very well. They're talking about a very long-term, powerful lease, a very strong lease.
And then, what matters most? If UK soldiers' boots will be on the ground in Ukraine after a possible peace deal with Putin, will Trump provide a security backstop if it all goes wrong? It sounded like he would.
And we're going to be signing really a very important agreement for both sides, because it's really going to get us into that country. We'll be working there. We'll have a lot of people working there. And so in that sense, it's very good. It's a backstop, you could say.
The final formalities.
Our trading relationship is not just strong, it's fair, balanced and reciprocal. We're leaders together in so many areas.
We're going to make some great trade agreements with the UK and with the Prime Minister, and it'll happen very quickly.
Tomorrow, you're seeing President Zelensky to sign this deal on minerals and energy that could be hugely important to the United States. Will you take the opportunity to apologise to him for calling him a dictator while praising Vladimir Putin, who is a dictator?
And I think we're going to have a very good meeting tomorrow morning. We're going to get along really well, okay? We have a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for him. We've given him a lot of equipment and a lot of money, but they have fought very bravely, no matter how you figure it. They have really fought. Somebody has to use that equipment, and they have been very brave in that sense.
Then the final formalities, when Starmer was told he would get something successive British governments have been desperate for, a US trade deal. Robert Peston, News at 10 in Washington.
Well, let's get a reaction to all that we've seen unfold in the last couple of hours from Robert and Dan. Dan first, just to get a snap feeling of what the reaction has been to this summit so far and some of the lines that we've had from it.
Yeah, I mean, essentially the charm offensive is working. It was started by President Macron earlier this week, continued by Prime Minister Starmer today. I mean, you know, Donald Trump rode back from many of his more extreme positions this afternoon, saying that he supported Article 5, an attack on one is attack on all for NATO. He talked about his respect for President Zelensky, having previously called him a dictator, and you know, held out the prospect of a UK trade deal as well. As undoubtedly the increase in military spending must have helped smooth the path for this meeting. He's got that meeting with President Zelensky tomorrow. But, you know, when you're dealing with such a sort of capricious and mercurial president as Donald Trump, you never quite know which president you're going to get. But the one they got today was charming. It was almost gushing at some points. In terms of the reaction, well, David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, left the room with an enthusiastic thumbs up. Peter Mandelson, the new UK ambassador, was also smiling almost ear to ear. A Downing Street source saying they're agreeing they're buzzing. Very positive, one diplomatic source told me. And I suggested perhaps they might consider opening a glass of champagne, a bottle of champagne this evening, or maybe some English sparkling wine. And some, came the response from a source in the UK embassy.
OK, Dan, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, Robert was in the room. He's still at the White House for us now. I mean, there were moments of gush for sure, Robert. How do you think Keir Starmer thought it went, and what tangible will come out of this? Because things could change overnight, couldn't they? We know how this president sometimes acts.
Well, you know, a lot does hinge on this meeting tomorrow between the American president and President Zelensky. And the reason I say that is because although a lot of people have been very critical of President Trump for essentially forcing Ukraine to hand over hundreds of millions of dollars worth of valuable minerals and energy, that is sort of the guarantee that if Putin were to invade again after a peace deal, the Americans would be, you know, essentially behind the European forces, British forces on the ground there. And so I think that was one reason why the British Prime Minister was pretty positive, both during his conversations and right at the end. It wouldn't have been dignified for him to punch the air, but talking to his colleagues, they say genuinely they were, you know, just amazed by how well it went. A lot of that down to the intervention of King Charles. It is, you know, a well-known fact that the president loves the royal family. And you could just see, looking at President Trump's face, how overjoyed he was that he will be the first president in American history to come on a state visit twice. Quite a remarkable thing. Now, the other aspect of all of this that obviously massively pleases Starmer and his colleagues is that Trump himself kept talking about the prospects for a trade deal. This is something that successive British prime ministers have been desperate for, particularly since we left the European Union. But I have to say, at this stage, you have to see it more as a sort of sign of how positive the relationship appears to be at the moment between Britain and America, because Trump was also pretty positive about a trade deal when he was first president after 2016. And a deal never materialised for all the attempts of successive British prime ministers. But I think the one thing that you might be able to deduce from this is that even if he does whack very painful tariffs on the EU, it may be that we won't, in the UK, suffer from those tariffs to the or we won't get quite, we won't be punished quite as much as that. So, as I say, given the incredible anxiety that I detected from Starmer and his team in advance of this, honestly, I cannot believe that they will be doing anything but celebrating on the plane home tonight.